into Parnell as well. Had that run out. So yes, you're absolutely right. Something to work with for Zimbabwe.
Well, it was a 9-over game, and we thought it was going nowhere with South Africa all over Zimbabwe in the first 5 or 6 and 7. Then suddenly we've got 32 of the last 2 overs. Rabada and Anrik Noke conceding 32 between them. There was 5 freak penalty runs as well in that, which gives Zimbabwe at least something to bowl at. They'll have to go at 9 and over South Africa if they are to register their first 2 points in this World Cup and ensure that they don't end up giving Zimbabwe their first win over the Proteas in the format. This is a delayed halftime show on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout. We'll hear from Andy Flower in just a moment. Anil Kumble in studio with me. I think I have more experience in 9-over cricket than you do, Anil.
Yes.
But I must still ask you to try and analyze that and tell me if 79 is something you'd be pleased with if you're Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I think the last 2 overs sort of made up for all the slow innings that they sort of went through, especially in the power play, because at power play is when you sort of maximize the run scoring in a shortened version. But I think Zimbabwe have 79 runs to play with. That's decent. I mean, that's a good score. You still need 9 runs and almost a 9 runs and over. So yeah, it all depends on what South Africa come up with. Will they open with Bavuma? That'll be the big question. Obviously, the captain has to take a call.
It's a great question. All of a sudden, from going to this being a good game to start against Zimbabwe, now it's a 9-over shootout, if I can call it that. Andy Flower, I don't know what sort of chat goes on in 9-over games, but if you're 79, would you take it for Zimbabwe?
Well, I hope it's going to be a 9-over banana skin for the South Africans. I don't think I would take it. Not at the start of the game, no. But that's what they've got. You know, Raunak, you were talking about your 9-over experience. I've got a bit of T10 experience actually, and you don't win many games with 80 on the board. But they've got something, and they certainly recovered really well. Young Wesley Madavere played beautifully. He's got a really nice range of shots. I first saw him in his debut against Pakistan in an ODI when he played absolutely beautifully. So it was really nice to see him do that when Zimbabwe really needed someone to do something to give them a little bit of something to defend. So let's see. They're going to need an outstanding bowling and fielding performance. And as you saw, fielding wasn't easy on that slippery outfield.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of catches going down. Lungi Ngidi putting one down. We saw a freak incident, which I'll come to in just a moment. You'd still expect South Africa, with their batting prowess, to chase 18 9 overs. Andy Flower is absolutely right. Teams tend to get in excess of 10 and over when you have these curtailed T20 games of 8, 9s and thereabouts. But given that Zimbabwe were about 47 at the end of 7 overs, Faf, you're with us as well. Did South Africa just doze off in the last 2 overs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a decent total to try and knock out when you're going to bat now. I think the important thing that I saw from that innings was that always, no matter how much the overs, you always still need to build an innings, you know, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 balls where you just get yourself in and then you can counter, as Andy talked about T10. Even in that small format, you can't just go out and play and try and hit 6 from the first ball. Maybe other guys can, but I certainly couldn't. Another thing that's really important for me now is net run rate. I think South Africa would have learned their lesson from last World Cup on these games we're trying to push for run rate. So it'll be interesting to see how hard they go.
Yeah, it's a good point that Faf du Plessis makes. It did look like, Anil, that Zimbabwe's openers just wanted a swing from ball 1. There's a lot of playing and missing. It ended up being a tame couple of overs at the top.
Yeah, you still need to sort of assess the conditions, bounce. You know that the South Africans have pace, so it's just a matter of assessing the bounce and then playing a shot. So that's something that Zimbabwe didn't do in the first 5 overs, and the last 2 overs sort of worked out. At least they have 79. Yes, Faf is right. I mean, this and Andy as well. I mean, this is not enough. South Africa should get that, but it all depends on how they go about in the power play, and then how quickly can they get these 80 runs.
Okay, now let's go to my favorite moment of this innings. It came just as we were getting mic'd up and ready to go on air. Quinton de Kock. I love Quinton de Kock. But Faf du Plessis, have you ever seen him penalised for 5 penalty runs when the poor lad in good faith has taken one glove off to try and keep his throwing arm ready? And that's what happens.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's worse, being knocked on the shin from a fast bowler's throw or 5 penalty throws. He did the right thing there. He was trying to get his glove off to try and get to the other side. The ball, Quinny is very good with always getting his glove off quickly and throwing very accurately with his right hand. But obviously quite wet out there, so the ball just probably skidded a little bit more and then hit him straight on the shin and then ricocheted back onto the keeper's glove. So very unlucky, actually.
Yeah, it may not cost them today, Andy, but maybe in a closer game. 5 runs is significant in a 2020 game. Is that Lucknow Super Giants glove going to stay far away from Quinton if he has this thought?
It had to happen to Quinny, didn't it? Of course. Slightly sloppy, but as Faf says, just skidded a little. He does wear little shin guards. Actually, he doesn't wear the big the old style keeper's pad, but he does wear shin guards. So hopefully, it just caught the edge of that.
Okay, I'm sure you'll be giving him a little grief for it in the dressing room. Funny moment, that crazy moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can penalize Quinny for that, but yeah, I mean, we've seen MS actually put the gloves behind, tuck it in his trouser, and especially for the last couple of balls, and that's something maybe keepers tend to do. Yeah, it's very difficult to say anything to the keepers.
Yeah.
There's one keeper in the panel here,
Sure.
so you'll have to ask him.
No, I think it's been a long time. I think towards the end, Andy Flower even stopped keeping wicket. He was just doing what the classical batters do, like Sangha and him, just bat and get someone younger to go up and down every game, weren't you, Andy?
Well, we were lucky to have Tatenda Taibu come in, and he was full of bounce and energy and a better keeper, so it worked out all round. Yeah, but these days keepers are whipping those gloves off right at the end of innings, hitting the stumps on attempted run-throughs on buys is a really important part of the keeper's game, and they do quite a lot of practice with it these days. Although in this instance he was just whipping the glove off and trying to get the run out.
All right, I tell you what, there's perhaps an idea here for the manufacturers of cricket kits and clothing. Maybe just some sort of socket to leave a glove hanging if a keeper wants it. Isn't it awesome? If you heard it here first. Not like I'll make anything out of it, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, 80 to get. We expect South Africa to get it. Anil Kumble brought up the question first up. Faf, Temba opens in this case. 80 is gettable, but you never know if you slip up. You don't really have time to catch up in a 9-over game. Would you open with Temba?
Yeah, so I think there's two faults to that question. One is game time for Temba. So looking at the big picture moving forward in the tournament, you want Temba to get some runs under his belt and some confidence for the rest of the games. So there's value in that. I know certainly being in the change room that when you have these shortened games, you do walk off the field and you go, right, who do we think is the most probably explosive guys that we can use to try and target net run rate especially. So it's certainly a conversation I'm sure would be happening right now in that dressing room. If they feel like they want to go for the run rate, then yes, that's a really good option to get someone in that's going to go straight away, or the decision will be we're going to give Temba some time and use the middle facilities for him.
As it turns out, we do have pitchers now. Temba Bavuma and Quinton de Kock have walked out, so they're not tinkering with their opening partnership. Does that make sense?
I mean, the other way of looking at it is, it's a good opportunity for Temba to not worry about any noise that is there around his batting and about his form. This is probably the best approach. You can't just, wait for your time. You just have to go literally from ball one. Yes, Faf did mention about getting your eye in for a couple of balls, but then once you have done that, you have to go after the bowling. So, which is not a bad thing if you're out of form.
All right, was curious to see South Africa's tactics. Seem to have mid-off and mid-on in throughout, bowl that short of a length, sort of length. Andy, what's the quick chat to Zimbabwe's bowlers if they are going to make a game out of this, or if they have to, as they walk out?
Well, initially they have to attack. They've got to look to take wickets, and moving the ball sideways for someone like Chitara would be important initially. And Muzarabani with his bounce, and in Garava with his left arm angle, they should be useful operators out there. So aim for wickets early. That's what I'd do.
All right, everyone going with South Africa then? Anyone going for an upset? Anil, South Africa, Zimbabwe?
South Africa.
Yeah, Faf, South Africa to chase this?
South Africa to win it convincingly.
All right, Andy, you go with that?
I'm afraid, yeah, as a betting man, I would go with that. But my heart is obviously firmly pointed in the other direction.
Very well. Let's see if that heart, which still is very much red for Andy Flower, still beats at the end of it for Zimbabwe. We will see who picks up their first points in the Super 12s and pick up the chat with Faf du Plessis, Anil Kumble and Andy Flower on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 time or at the end of this chase. So do join us then.